So we are draining cognitive energy very, very quickly. Just work in cycles of 45 minutes. Your brain just starts to drift. It's harder to stay focused and concentrate. We have a piece of optimal focus period. When we push through that little bump, we end up feeling really good.
Is it fair to say our optimal focus time is really not practiced enough as we're growing?
Our brains are now continuously giving partial attention to everything. The cognitive energy in our brain just keeps draining.
What would be one small thing that would encompass optimal focus time?
Take your phone, move it away from your desk when you're working.
Have you noticed your focus comes and goes? Your sleep isn't doing its job, and you're a little more reactive than you want to be, even when nothing looks wrong on the outside. Today I'm joined by Alex Davids, director and co-founder of Next Evolution Performance. She uses neuroscience-backed coaching to help people sustain high performance without burning out. We'll unpack what's happening in your brain and nervous system when you're running on fumes, how to catch the signals early, and a few small shifts you can try immediately. Alex, I'm very excited for our conversation today. How are you?
Thanks, Dwayne. I'm really well. I'm really well. It's a beautiful morning here in New Zealand, and it's a nice way to start the day and good conversation.
Yeah, and I had a burning question that I wanted to start with.
Okay.
I'm a really, really hard worker. And, for myself, I'll be honest, I don't always notice stress. I just push through, and I don't know if it's my generation, but I compartmentalize stress, I think, really, really well. But I've been learning over the last little bit that it's been manifesting in different ways in terms of like I'm getting broken sleeps, or sometimes my attention span changes from day to day. So in brain and nervous system terms, what's happening?
Yeah. Well, first of all, well done. That's really great self-awareness that you're starting to see it's impacting you in different ways. So a lot of people don't even see that, or maybe for years they don't see that, and then all of a sudden they'll say, I can't get out of bed with any energy anymore, and I don't know what's going on. And these are the beginning signs of the technical version of burnout, where we just lose energy for things that we typically had energy for. So from a neuroscience perspective, we spend a lot of time in the last probably 6 or 7 years in particular. We can talk about why those years in particular, but talking about cognitive drain. And so really, when you're operating in a way that is just continuing to push through, you're ignoring your own markers that tell you, I need a bit of recovery now. Because when we think of recovery, we typically think of an athlete, right? As someone, when you're physically exercising and then you're exhausted and you need to stop and drink water or stretch. But when we're what we call knowledge workers, people who work with our brains, we're not very good at paying attention to the brain that is saying, I need recovery. We only have approximately 4 hours of deep cognitive work available to our brains every day. And so when we smash through that in the morning, and then we expect ourselves to be able to continue to do that for another 4 or 5, maybe more hours in the afternoon, it's unrealistic of our brain. And so what happens is the energy, the cognitive energy our brain requires to operate starts to dwindle. And then we find it really hard to bring our focus back. So if you are under stress, we can talk about stress, it's a huge topic, but then your nervous system is in a state of fight or flight. And I'm sure this is a conversation lots and lots of leaders are now finally having. And when we're in that state of fight or flight, our amygdala, is this little part at the back of our base of our brain, is firing off signals to say you're under stress. And that's no different to when we were under stress living out in the bush, and call it the bush in New Zealand, the jungle, or wherever it might be out in the wilderness. And we were worried about our physical safety. Now, when we get a stressful email or a heavy workload, the same signals happen in our brain. So the amygdala fires off signals. Those signals go to our brain and shut down this part in the front of our head, our prefrontal cortex, which is required for us to be able to think clearly, make rational decisions, emotionally regulate, sleep well. And it shuts that part of our brain down so that we can either fight, flight, or freeze. There's one more, but let's focus on those. And so your brain is completely absorbed in trying to keep you safe and get you back into a place where you can bring the brain back online. So there's a lot of things going on in your body and your brain when you're under stress, but some of the biggest are you're ignoring your need for recovery, your brain's need for recovery. And then that is having an impact on your brain's ability to think in the way that you want and desperately need it to. Um, so a lot of the attention has to come back to how do you recover your brain and get the energy back in there, and then how do you also keep your brain out of that fight or flight mode.
So you're saying then when I'm going through my day working really hard, which is actually celebrated right now in society in a lot of
Uh-huh.
ways, hard working, right? And how many of us have been brought up. So you're saying that I'm ignoring my own body telling me that I need to recover, I need to pace myself, and it's then responding in that way later on, or if it's like reacting to what I'm ignoring later on in ways of my sleep, my eating habits, maybe my stress levels. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the human body is amazing, right? We can
Yeah.
endure a lot. We can survive a lot. There are so many examples through history of people surviving in circumstances that you just couldn't imagine. So we tell ourselves a lot of the time, I'm okay, I can push through. This is crazy. It's just completing a document or doing a piece of work and I just have to get it done. But when we do that, our body, instead of, so we have a piece of IP that we work with that we developed quite a long time ago, at the beginning of our business, nearly 18 years ago, that is called your optimal focus period. So you have an optimal focus period and I have one. And this is where it becomes very individual. So you may be able to focus really well without needing to recover for, let's say, 45 minutes. And that used to be what everybody thought they could do. And there was an old leadership thing that said just work in cycles of 45 minutes, but that's just the average. So let's say you're 45 minutes. And at around 45 minutes, your brain just starts to drift. It's harder to stay focused and concentrate. But you've got this thing and you know you can probably get it done if you just stay at your desk and get it done. And so you ignore that 45-minute marker and you push through. And when you start doing that, you're continuously pulling your brain back into away from distraction and back into what you're trying to focus on. And as you do, it gets harder and harder and harder to do that work. Now, if you had stopped at that 45 minutes and you had walked around for 3 or 4 minutes, got a glass of water, done a little stretching, and come back, you would have been able to go again with the same level of focus for the next 45 minutes. But we tend to push through. And then instead of it taking 45 minutes, it takes another hour, maybe hour and 15. And so we are draining cognitive energy very, very quickly. And it's taking us longer to do the work. Just by way of example and comparison, mine is more like 20 minutes. So I have a very short optimal focus period. There are people with much shorter. But I also know that if I'm working on something technical and I'm building a presentation, every 20 minutes, drink a glass of water. Then I got another 20 minutes, drink a glass of water, stretch. I've got another 20. And if I operate like that, I can go for quite a long time and get the work done feeling really good. When we push through that little bump, we end up finishing, but it takes longer and we're more drained at the end of it, significantly more drained, often feeling like we can't do anything after we've done that piece of work, perhaps.
When you talk about that bump, how long does that bump have to be? Because when I think about stepping away, sometimes I think about, okay, do I need 15 minutes or do I need
Mm.
10 minutes? Do I need a minute? Like, what's significantly good for myself or anybody who's listening for that bump, that stepping away time?
Yeah, great question. So it is relative to the amount of focus that you've got. So with 20 minutes, I only need a minute to have a little water and maybe move around a bit. If you're going for 45, you probably need somewhere more like 5 to 8 minutes or maybe 10. And there are people who are very good at deep diving and deep focus, and they're going for an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time, they need to spend 20 minutes, half an hour we're completely switched into another task. So the longer you go for, the deeper recovery you need. Um, but I'm careful not to give technical or specific numbers because we're all individuals. And despite us all being similar in our brain construction, the way that the brain is connected, the way that our experiences have impacted us from the moment that we were born. In fact, there's plenty of research to suggest prior to birth and even from previous generations in our life, our brain has been impacted, but are so different. It's actually hard to compare two people in the way they see the world. So you really have to bring it back to treating yourself as a project. That's how I position it with clients and leaders all the time, is just think of yourself as the project. You're learning about yourself all the time. How much of a recovery do I need before I've got another 20 minutes in me? And what type of recovery do I need? For some people, they can switch to a different piece of work and that's enough. For others, they have to get up and walk away and do something else. So yeah, it's very, very individual and you have to just play with it.
How do you play with it? How would I, if I wanted to find out tomorrow what my optimal time is, how would I figure that
Yeah.
out?
Well, there's an easy way. There's an online questionnaire on our website, so nextevolutionperformance.com, and you can go and take your optimal focus questionnaire. It's really short and really simple, and it just gives you an indication. It tells you your natural optimal focus. So that's the optimal focus that you would have if I took away all pressure in your life, all societal pressure, all family and social pressure. And this is how you would just choose to operate. And the closest way we can understand that is to go back to how we operated as a child, because those are the times where we kind of did what we wanted to until we went to school, and then school said you will operate this way. But prior to that, and play, we always, you look around now at children, and the ones who are kids can sit down and play for hours at a time without moving. And then there are other children who like to play with something for 5 minutes, something else for 5 minutes. So that's what it'll tell you, your natural optimal focus. And then it will also tell you your optimal focus currently in your work life, so how you're operating in work, and currently in your personal life. So you'll get your optimal, your professional, and your personal. And what you want to try to do from an energy maintenance perspective is bring those back closer together so that you are, as often as possible, operating at your optimal focus period. So just a really easy test run is try not to make it your phone, a little clock on your desk. I'll tell you why about phones in a little bit, and begin a piece of work, begin writing a blog or putting your presentations together. And as soon as you feel your mind start to drift, just check how many minutes have gone by. And if it's 5, maybe there's some other impacts going on, but it's probably going to surprise you how long you can go, or maybe how short. We all think our optimal focus is shorter than it really is because of the society that we're currently living in. I think you mentioned earlier that, this is just the way it is these days, is that we've hit this tipping point of speed. And now we feel that the norm is for us to do a million things as fast as we can. We're almost in this competition with AI and trying to treat humans like we are machines who can compete. And if we continue to run that race, we're going to lose. There's only one answer there. So I'm really encouraging people at the moment to think about what it means to be human and how to be the optimal human, which means understanding your brain and what it needs to operate well, and your body, and that connection between the two. But we've moved a long way away from understanding what we need to operate at our best. And it has got to the point I'm seeing that we're starting to feel like it's abnormal to do all the things that make us human instead of operating like this machine that we work with and from.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you have a fondness about the human-centric nature of the way we should live. And it actually came out in your facial expression in that moment when you were talking about being a child and you're able to do what you want. What happened? What happens to us between that stage and that first stage of going to school?
Yeah. Well, this is the societal downside of going into constructed organizations. Um, and look, I'm not anti-education in school. I think that we have a really important need for it. But I do think someone asked me just yesterday, actually, they have small children and my children are all growing up now. And they said, what would you have, is there anything you would have done differently? And I said, yeah, I would have been more brave about alternative education for my kids, at least up until 7, 8, 9 years old. Because I think the value in children learning to operate in a way that is totally aligned to them is phenomenally important. Even if they then go into public school system later, they at least are going in with an awareness of how they operate. And in order to do that, you have to be given freedom to test run. Okay, what's your attention like here? What are you into tangible things, or do you like more um, creative and different ways of utilizing your brain and different ways of learning. So yes, that would be, as soon as we go into the public school system, we're told, okay, we're sitting down on the mat or the desk, we're reading from this time to this time. There's one system and one way of learning, which really leads quite beautifully into talking about neurodiversity now, because we're taught one way, we're taught to learn one way mostly. There's a few elements where we might be given other aspects, but that's largely lateral thinking. And then we go into the workplace and we're told that this is the way that we operate in the workplace as well. And we don't provide our children, and therefore now we're adults living it, the opportunity to understand and to be able to learn in ways that are different. And then we get to the workplace and it's very, very similar. It's just a map of education. This is how you work through our system in the workplace. This is very high on my mind at the moment. I'm sitting on a panel next week to talk about neurodiversity in the workplace, and at a big law firm in New Zealand. And interestingly, it's driven by 3 senior lawyers whose children are all neurodiverse, and they're noticing the schools aren't supporting them very well. And they're starting to say, well, hold on, how are we supporting people in the workplace with neurodiversity? And my feedback to them was, why are we thinking that neurodiversity is just a small group of people? That we're all neurodiverse. We all sit on a spectrum of thinking in incredibly different ways. The key is not saying, what do we do for this neurodiverse group? The key is to say, how are we creating psychologically safe environments that allow everybody to operate at their very best, which is different for everyone. I answered that in a very roundabout way, but I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. When you talk about, so it sounds like from a very young age, we are conditioned to act and think and behave in a certain way that may not be naturally responsible for our nature in terms of what we need to really thrive to be the best version of ourselves. So since we're indoctrinated, many of us are indoctrinated through school systems, and then we kind of, transition right into part-time jobs for a lot of people, which have those same sort of conditions and way of operating. And then you move into a full-time job. Now your life becomes even more dependent, unlike school, on doing things in a certain way specifically every single day. Now, is it fair to say that because of that, our optimal focus time that we have is really not practiced enough as we're growing in a way where we can use it or expand it, where we could push, our optimal focus time from 4 hours a day to 5 hours a day? Do you think what's happening in these structures that we're growing through are creating such a safety mechanism in our brain that it's condensing the amount of optimal focus time that we have available to us when we're older?
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think of it. Certainly, we're conditioned to a certain way of approaching tasks and workload, absolutely, and we're not given the freedom to say, well, if I work for 10 minutes, then and then I need a 1 minute break, there's definitely no space for that. I can't imagine teachers saying to young children, "Sure, you can take a break. We've only just started the exercise, but you can take a break." In fact, as my middle child just enters a new school, the teacher literally said, "In this classroom, we work for 50 minutes, then we take a 5 minute break, and then we work for another 50, and that's how our day goes." So, what about the kids that are 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so yeah, at 100%. I think we are conditioned to be told there is a way to work. And if that doesn't work for you, you're going to have to figure that out. So we're not given a lot of tools to say, hey, look, we do work in this classroom for 50-minute cycles. If you're finding you're losing attention, please just drink some water and stand up for a second and then keep going. There's not a lot of support. It's stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. Push through what your body is telling you, push through what your brain is telling you, and good luck. And you look at adults and children, but by the end of the day, most adults I know are so tired that when they walk in the door at their homes to their families, their friends, their roommates, whoever they're coming home to themselves, I often say coming home to yourself is you've got nothing left. And we should be tired at the end of the day so we can sleep, but we shouldn't be exhausted and with nothing to give and nothing to enjoy. We should be able to operate in a way, much like an athlete does, where we work and we give energy, then we recover, then we work and we give energy and we recover. And by the end of the day, yeah, we need to rest, we need to get sleep, but we're coming out feeling like there's still ability to be ourselves. I think many people come home at the moment and they don't feel themselves. They're so exhausted. And then, we could dive in if you wanted to, but now you layer on the disruption that exists in our world today and the incredible impact of continuous partial attention, which is, I don't know if it's a term you've come across, Dwayne, but it's becoming more and more well known, defined by a woman in Microsoft, really, really clever neuroscientist who looked at how our brains are now continuously giving partial attention to everything. And when we do that, the cognitive energy in our brain just keeps draining. I mean, how many tabs are open on your computer, your phone? A lot of people have watches that are sending information to them. We are continuously just giving moments and moments to everything. And the research behind how long it takes our brain to come back to a task once we've switched off it is phenomenal. And then we do that multiple times within an hour. How much cognitive energy have we just drained and wasted? I tend to talk more about wasted energy than wasted time, because if you take care of the energy, the time is the time. That's how much you've always got. But if we've got the energy to deliver what we want to in that period, then that's more important.
I have to say, I love your passionate tone about this work that you do. So for everybody listening and for watching, people who are watching, what is the work that you do exactly?
Yeah, sure. The work that I do is with primarily executives and their leadership teams, but we also roll through whole companies now, have done for a number of years. But we originally started with CEOs only and their executives. And the work we do is using neuroscience to help these leaders perform at the high level that they want to. But the key focus for us is in a sustainable way. So we help them to understand how their brain works, how they apply that in a business and a life setting, because you can't separate the two. We're one brain, one system, one human. And then we teach them, or we work with them to understand themselves well enough so that they can go and deliver that into their leadership teams and to their organizations. For me, business is just the doorway to help humans understand how they operate at their best, and then to create environments, create cultures that are set up so that that can be true. But yeah, high performing in a sustainable way is the underlying theme of what we do. Yeah.
So Alex, what's your personal journey that got you here?
Isn't that a great question? I always try to think about this in a way that isn't too lengthy. I did study psychology, but I studied psychology at the University of Colorado, um, not because I thought this is what I wanted to do, but because I wasn't sure what else to do. And I thought psychology is a wonderful background to lots of things. If you can understand the way the brain operates, surely we can apply that in any setting. Um, and during my time at the University of Colorado, I got involved in lots of extra things. Coming from New Zealand, the US school system incredibly different, and I actually think the opportunities it offers are amazing. And in the extracurricular world, you can be involved in anything. And I ended up, through some work I did at the university, getting offered a job out of university to run the relationship between the university, the local government, and the community. And I thought, God, that's really interesting. But what I ended up doing was becoming a facilitator, because there were really hard discussions happening with university students, the local council, and then the community groups. Often the police were involved, and I had to facilitate some really tough discussions. And in that, I found I really love working with people who are trying to find common ground, but finding that difficult, and learning about other people and how they think. And again, didn't think much more than that. I just loved that role. It was a really impactful, interesting role. And then when I came back to New Zealand for a few years, I just snuck around in an advertising agency, and was really fortunate that the people who started that were very forward thinking. And they said, would you like us to help? We'd like you to help us set up a sub business that helps our clients understand themselves from the inside out, so that when we advertise, we're advertising in alignment with their values and who they are. And so I thought, man, that sounds amazing. I'd love to do that. And I got really lucky. I read this incredible book by a guy called Michael Henderson and his partner, and it's called Values at Work. And I was learning about how human values impact organizations. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can find this guy, and he's English. And I thought, okay, I'll get in touch with him on the other side of the world. And it turned out that this guy is living about 30 minutes away from where I was. So I reached out to him and I said, I think your book's incredible. Do you do any training in it? And he said, I do. And I went on an intensive training with him and his partner to learn how to understand humans and help them understand their values. He still runs this incredible business today. He calls himself a corporate anthropologist, and he's a phenomenal guy. And I started doing that in our clients' businesses, helping the senior leadership team understand themselves, their values, how they apply those values into their leadership styles, and then how the organization then lived their values because of those. And so I was really fortunate. I just kept coming into these opportunities. I'm sure I should look more deeply at what I did to create those opportunities for myself, but I always just felt I was really fortunate and passionate about people and understanding people. And we sold that business back into the ad agency. I went off traveling, as you do. I went through South America. I had a wonderful time and landed in England to see my sister. And I started looking for some work and came across this amazing business coaching firm. And what I loved about them is they put equal emphasis on culture and commercial. And they said for every commercial element, there is a cultural backing. For every cultural backing, there's a commercial element. And they didn't let organizations do anything if they didn't understand the two together. So I began working there, and I loved this business. And but after a period of time, I thought, what I love more is working with the individuals in the organizations. I'm not so fussed about the organization as a whole, but how the people in it change it. And I also realized that I actually really loved running my own business, and I wanted to go and do that. So when I was about to leave, they said to me, hold on, it takes a very long time to train people in this business. Where are you going? And the founder of the organization said, come and work with me for a year, and you'll see how I apply all this different business coaching, but in different ways. And so we had a year of seeing him work with people in lawsuits who needed to understand themselves better and to be able to ask for what they wanted. I couldn't believe how much my psychology was coming into play and all of the coaching skills that I'd learned through this organization. And through that year, I said to the founder, the one thing I really notice with your clients who are coming to you, these CEOs of these huge organizations, they're all telling you that they are either burnt out, they didn't use that word, but they were saying, I'm exhausted, I don't know if I can maintain, or they could see it coming, like I'm not going to be able to sustain, or they didn't want to go anywhere near it and they were fearful of it. I said, but all you're offering them is business tools to manage this. So who is out there working with these executives to show them you can actually surely be high performing and have a fulfilling and wonderful life and be healthy? Actually, shouldn't you have a fulfilling life, be healthy, and then that should help you be high performing? But there was just nothing. It was the support they were getting was go see a personal trainer, maybe see a doctor, take some time off. But no one said, let's talk to you about how you're operating. So I just said, we've got to pull something together here. And so, yeah, again, fortunate. We pulled in business structures to help the business side. We drew on psychology. We drew on neuroscience. This is where neuroscience started to become really important to me. And then we drew into the wellness world and looking at the physical side. And we built a business that supported the executives out of this organization. And this business coaching firm started to say to their executives, you can't work with us until you go and work with Alex and her business, because you need to be in a good mental state to get the best out of this. And look, our business has changed and we've got ownership structures have changed. And I now work with a wonderful business partner in Sydney, Australia, who was one of our first license holders. And now she is the CEO of our company, which is phenomenal, Vanessa Bennett. And Vanessa brought a really strong neuroscience band to our business. She came out of finance. She did a master's in neuroscience. And a couple of years later, I went and did a certificate of neuroscience so that I had my own stronger foundations in there. And so now here I am running this business. I had my own turns with it where I had to step out for a while because I realized I couldn't walk my talk anymore, and that was not a good thing. And then had a really wonderful opportunity to come back and be in it again in a way that really matched what worked for me. So that's sort of the business journey I've been through.
Yeah. I love your story because it's so culturally expansive, the travel that you've done. And I found, especially as I talked to one of my past guests, Chris March, who talked about leadership through travel and how important it is for leaders to travel and be in different societies and communities, because it really helps expand their ability to be more inclusive, to adapt to different people and to lead broader, more diverse teams. And I find that people who've traveled, everybody I've met who's traveled, has been very people-centric. They just have a very integrated or adaptive way of looking at the world. They tend to look at the world through other people's lens and have more empathy and understanding. And I'm glad that you've done that yourself, because it sounds like that's been a huge anchor for the work that you're doing right now, where that worldliness has given you the ability to really be in the middle of that concentric circle and say, this is about the heart, it's about people, before we talk about all the extensive things. So thanks for sharing that. It got me thinking, the work you do. So I love how you were the first line of contact. It's like, before we work on the organization, we got to figure out what's in the heart of the people. What are you finding when you're having those initial conversations? I'm sure there's a lot of different, experiences and stress determinants and things like that. What are you finding has been the most common thing when you start these conversations?
Oh gosh, that's a big question, Dwayne. The most common thing, it could be partly because this is what I'm attuned to and this is what I'm listening for and looking for. But today it is the unbelievable amount of pressure on people's expectations of themselves as leaders to be everything, to be able to do everything and manage everything on their own. So it's just, it really is unrealistic expectations of the self to do a huge amount of, I want to say work, but also manage everything else in your life. It's now expected that we should be phenomenal at all areas of our life all the time and be on top of that. I think women in particular really are feeling that pressure. But I probably 70% of my executive clients are male, and so they feel it as well. They're expected to be phenomenal at their jobs, amazing fathers, amazing husbands, amazing people in society. But they're not given a lot of tools around, well, okay, but how do I manage this load of expectation that isn't going to send me crashing down? So I would say that is probably, and okay, so, and how does that show up? That shows up as cognitive drain, low energy, and an inability to sustain energy is really what I'm seeing.
How do you fix that? That seems so overwhelming. I can imagine if you come in and I'm one of the leaders in the organization, you have your initial talk with me, and I say to you, Alex, yeah, the goals and the expectations that I have are really a lot. And year over year, we're expected to increase our results by 10 to 15%. And it's hard to keep and find good people. But at the same
Mm.
time, and this is kind of me jumping out of character, if I'm comfortable enough to talk to you about my personal life, I'm having problems at home. I'm not seeing my family enough. I'm not getting in good nutrition. I'm not getting in, good daily habits, working out, drinking a lot of water. How do you, Alex, like how do you approach that in that moment? Because it seems so multidimensional and faceted that it reaches, parts of people's lives that are outside of the
Yeah.
organization. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I smiled when you first said that example of, having problems at home because the very first executive client I had was, the founder of the business coaching firm sort of threw me in the deep end. He said, I've got a client for you, ready for you to get started. Go deliver this content that we've been working on. And, he's great. He runs a multinational organization. And I've told him you're the person. So I was pretty nervous thinking, okay, you've got your tools, you can go and coach this person. I walked in and within 15 minutes, this executive just said, I'm so stressed out and all these things are going on. And he said, I think I should leave my wife. What do you think? I was 26 years old. I definitely did not look or act like a 26-year-old, I don't think, which is potentially why I managed to do what I did back then. But people do share their personal lives because it's so impactful on them that the first opportunity, not all the time, but that they get in a safe, confidential environment to share what's really happening. These are the thoughts that are coming in. That if things are so overwhelming, what's the biggest lever I can pull to alleviate the stress? And leaving my wife, is that the biggest lever I can pull to just maybe that'll take all my stress away? What I see is that people don't look at themselves hard enough. They look at all the external stuff that is going on, the workload, the environmental pressure, the economy, you name it, family, health, all of these external things, instead of coming back to what is it that you want? What are you trying to achieve in your life? What's important to you? And what are you trying to achieve in your business? Let's talk about that at the same time. And when you get clearer about what your priorities are and what's important to you, then you can start looking at, okay, now how are those things? What am I really prioritizing? Because what people say is important to them and what they're actually prioritizing are usually two different things. So I can give this example, but the client is talking to about leaving their wife, wanted huge things in their business, huge things. They were growing so fast, 3 small little children, and saying, I guess I really want to be healthy. And then we looked at what his last month had been like, and he'd been on 2 planes to Ibiza to go to parties with big, powerful people and doing these amazing things to socialize for the business. And when so that one in particular came down to some tough coaching around, well, you're saying these are your priorities, but your behaviors aren't matching your priorities. So actually, what I would say is your priorities right now are to have a lot of fun growing your business. And that knocks off a whole lot of other stuff. So when you get super clear about what you really want, you have to ask, are my behaviors matching that, or are my behaviors matching something else? So when we approach the energy level, it is always about what people are trying to accomplish, honestly, and then how are they approaching that? So you need the mindset piece. What is my mindset around what I'm doing? We always talk about mental, neural, and physical elements of cognitive energy. The mind, is your head in the right place? Do you have a strong mindset for what you're trying to do? And the neural part is, how do you think about what you're doing? How do you put structure around it? So if this is what you want and your mindset is in the right place, how are you building your hours, your day, your week, your month, your year in a way that supports you? And using that optimal focus we talked about earlier helps build that rhythm really well. And then the last piece is physically. If you're ignoring your physicality and saying, well, I can do this just using my brain, then you're not realizing the huge connection of your physical body to your brain. If you're not physically and taking really good care of yourself, sleeping well, eating well, getting lots of movement, then your brain will not work at its optimal. So we kind of work through those three areas with executives to help them address honestly. If that's truly what you want, then these are the things that you're going to have to shift. It's
So
a
if I have
big answer.
no, and if I can condense it and you could tell me if I'm on the right track. If I'm trying to do a lot of things in my day, whether it's, have a great relationship with my partner, my family, my friends, myself, my job, but there's something in there that's out of alignment and mentally I haven't acknowledged it yet, then neurally what's happening at that point? Neurally, what's happening in my brain?
Yeah. So if you're living out of alignment with it, with what you're saying you want, well, neurally, your brain is just focused on the wrong, not on the wrong things, on something that you're not willing to admit is important to you. So there's some really great stuff on values, that when people say what their values are, and then you go and, I want to save and grow my, I don't know, value or wealth and blah, blah, blah. And then you go and look at their spending habits and you say, well, if saving and growing your value is truly your value, then why does your spending look like this? Actually, their value might be more around living comfortably now, in the now, with what they're choosing to spend on, or it might be more around reputation and the way things look. But neurologically, a lot of different things could be happening, but effectively your belief in what you value is not truly what you actually value. So there's a breakdown between what is true through your behavior and what your, I want to say, psychologically thinking or wanting to be your true values.
So the interesting thing with that is, let's just say somebody's values are to be a really good partner, a really good parent, a really good sibling, son, daughter, etc., a really good friend. Like, these are your things that you value. You want to be there for your people. But by the time your workday is done, you just don't have the energy. So let's just say it manifests in ways where you cancel dates, you cancel appointments, you don't call somebody because you're fatigued, you're tired. And mentally, you're thinking about work, you're thinking about what you did in the day, you're rehearsing conversations, you're thinking about the next day, but your priority is getting that promotion, getting that wage increase, getting that next project opportunity. If the system is set up in a way where economically, as we know, the life standard right now is increasing so much in terms of,
Mm.
the economy that people need. There's like this almost imposed need to focus on work, to focus on getting as much money, saving as much money as you can. All of those things are stressors, but they don't really lend itself an opportunity to be with your family, to be at home, to spend time with the people that you want to be with, and then you feel guilty. So all of these things are happening. How do you, even if you want to be in alignment and you want to focus more with your family and your friends and spend more time with them, then something else is going to be sacrificed. And if it ends up being the very thing, your job, that's causing you more of the stress, then all of that economical opportunity that you're focusing on may be at risk. What direction would I go in at that point?
Yeah. I love this line of conversation because it's rampant today. And so the first question is always, is this truly what you really want? Is it truly, and most people would say, yes, I do want, my family is my priority and my relationship and but I have to do this work and I have to, in order to support the family. And so absolutely. And then I come back to this little question. We talked a little bit about time and energy before. We have, so there's two parts to this answer. One is the time and energy piece. We have a funny default to equate time and energy as the same thing. So we think if I'm not getting equal time with my family and equal time on work, then that feels out of balance. And that's why I often say we kind of need to throw away this idea of work-life balance because we think that it's going to be equal. But have you ever had a conversation with someone, Dwayne, and in 1 minute you feel completely deflated? You just think, wow, that just took the steam out of me talking to that person. Okay, so that's got nothing to do with how long you spoke to them for. And another person you can speak to for a minute and you walk away thinking, my gosh, what a phenomenal energy. I feel amazing. So it's not the time that you're with people that gives energy or takes energy. It's the quality of the time. So what I talk to people about is think about, let's imagine you've got 100 energy credits. We talk on energy credits a lot, and you've got those to spend. Where are you choosing to spend the energy credits? Now, that doesn't mean time. You might spend 80% of your time at work, but 20% of your time with your family. And if that 20% of time is really high quality and you are present and mindful and focused and with them, then the quality of that potentially becomes much more energizing than needing to spend 80% of your time with them. I always say with children is such a good example because they don't need you all the time. But if you sat with them and you gave them 5 minutes of total presence, they feel like you've just given them the world. But we don't. We hardly ever sit with our children and put our phones away and not be thinking about work or thinking about the cleaning that we've got to do. So giving energy is far more, and presence is far more valuable than giving the amount of time that you're giving. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're managing our energy around our work. And our whole business is set up around if you're really managing your energy well and the way that you work and learning how your brain operates really well, work should be easier, not harder. If it's really hard, if you're really exhausted all the time, you're doing something wrong. And it's probably just not what we see is 95% of the time. People are just not utilizing their brains in the way in which the brain should be utilized. So we're pushing too hard. We're pushing through breaks. We're not getting recovery of our brain. We're not prioritizing. We're not outsourcing the stuff that de-energizes us. There's a whole host of tools that we can be using so that when we get to the end of the day, our brain isn't absolutely exhausted and we can go home to the family and we can give the energy, that presence that makes such a difference in connecting. Most people's partners would say, look, I don't need to go on a date night for 3 or 4 hours every week. But when you come home and you talk to me about my day, give me total presence when you talk to me about my day. people feel like they need this time out, this time away, these, big date nights or holidays or whatever they might be, because they can't get presence from their partner or themselves any other way. But if we gave each other real presence, I've got some great clients who are doing really awesome things now, just committing to a 15-minute walk with their partner as soon as they get home. Hey, look, the kids will be fine for 15 minutes if they've got children. Let's walk around the block together. No phones, ask how you're doing, what happened in your day, tell you a bit about my day. And that total connection and total presence makes human beings feel phenomenal. So it's not that we want the wrong things necessarily. It's that we are pouring and draining energy unnecessarily. Technology being one of our biggest downfalls these days. But if we can break apart the time versus energy, we have a much bigger opportunity for presence.
So give me an example how you can manage your energy throughout the day. So we'll go through 3 different stages. In the morning, before you start work, during work, and then when you come home for work. You already gave a good example there with that 15-minute walk as soon as you come in. But what would managing energy look like if you could give some examples for those 3 typical areas?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure it's well drawn out now, but like the value of a great morning routine. I'm always conscious of people who have small children, because I remember being told all this stuff when I had small children, thinking, well, you clearly don't have children. But presence when you waking up, putting a ring around your morning that is protective, that early morning, those first hour, 2 hours. Do not check phones. You have to have special note to people who work in 24-hour finance industries, and sometimes they feel they do, but I've worked with enough of them that actually the world is not going to change in an hour if you do not look at your phone. Get a proper alarm clock instead of using your phone as an alarm clock. It is such a powerful little shift from checking your phone and having 15 little notifications hit you right away. Protect that hour. Get up. Do something nice for yourself. If you can get sunlight on your face, that's hard right now, Dwayne, in Toronto, in the first little bit, but even fresh air, walking outside, opening a window, fresh air on your face, drinking a lot of water when you first wake up. A lot of people don't even think about it until mid-morning, but try to finish a whole bottle before I even start moving out of my bedroom. And then do something in that little morning period that anchors you for your day. If you're fortunate enough to have the space where you can have 15 minutes or more to yourself, then sit quietly, close your eyes, anchor yourself into what you want your day to be like, an intention, if you like, and calm your nervous system. So this is where done a lot of study, and I teach meditation, and I support a lot of executives with that now as well. But getting the nervous system into a place where it is calm and open is one of the greatest things you can do any time of day, but particularly first thing in the morning, starting with telling your body it's safe effectively, and so that then your brain comes online and you can think clearly. Get yourself into that space with some big, deep belly breaths, or what we call, moving down into that rib cage area, setting your intention, and then choosing to move into your morning with lots of presence. All sorts of craziness can happen in the morning. I often say to people, sometimes we've spent 30 or 40 of our energy credits before we even get into the work. But do what you can to move through that peacefully. Try not to get wound up by traffic or whatever your commute might be. Those sorts of things. You want to hold on to those energy credits as much as you can, and notice where you're expending them when you don't need to. Then into your working day. It's also a great idea when you get there to be conscious of what the flow of your day could be like. I try to get an energetic flow with clients of their week and their day. So when you look at your day, what is it going to feel like energetically? This is going to be a really heavy meeting. It's going to take a lot of my energy. Okay, great. What are you doing the 15 minutes before that and the 15 minutes after and throughout? So you're paying attention to the rhythm of your day, of course, using your optimal focus to run your day as best you can. If you're in an hour and a half meeting and you know you're a 20-minute optimal focus person, you're going to need to probably drink a lot of water and go to the bathroom a couple of times to get through that without burning out. So think of your day from an energy point of view. And then when you get home, things like taking a short walk. I've got clients who told me crazy things, oh, I used to get home and I would park down the road and wait till the kids were in bed because, if I walked in and it was crazy, I would just be the worst person. And it sounds like a terrible thing. It's just about shifting the mindset around that. So I would say, well, if you want to see the children, why don't you just set yourself up to be in a good place to see them? So part of that is the rhythm of your day. But part of that is about coming back to that settling of the nervous system. Listen to some peaceful music in the car, or if you're walking or on a train or something in your headphones. Make a break between your finishing work and entering home life, whatever that home life looks for you. There is some incredible research. Actually, a Kiwi guy has done it, but he's done it of global high performers in all sorts of industries, from Army and Navy, business, all over the world. And what he pulled out was the top 10 traits of high performers, sustainable high performers, which is why I loved the research so much. And two that really stuck out for me. One was there was always a clear break between home and work. For people who worked at home, that included things like going and getting changed. When you're about to start work, go put on something different. It doesn't have to be particularly business-like, but just different. When you finish, go and change. Another one was they would just walk out their front door around the block and come back, and that signified their commute home. So just clear breaks. And the other that stood out for me was a really clear, defined relationship with their device, but, namely their phone. So their phone is for X, Y, Z. They could say and articulate, this is what my phone is for, and then put it away for those first few hours that you're home. So much as you protect the first couple of hours of your day, or hour at least, protect a couple of hours in the afternoon, evening that are phone-free, distraction-free, allow you to be really present. And those are the things that'll begin to support you. Of course, I could go on and on. Lots of things can support your energy.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was thinking about the daytime during work, because you mentioned something that I thought was cool, which is that really understanding the meetings, the level of the meetings that you're going to be walking into in terms of how much of your energy level is going to be needed for it. And I find that interesting, because when I have my meetings for the day, I kind of look and scan my calendar and I'm like, okay, which ones do I really, really need to be prepared for? Because I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. Which are the ones where I'm going to be just observing? I'm a bystander. And I could tell in that moment when I'm more relaxed. It's the ones where I'm a bystander. It's like I know that I'm not going to be extending as much energy. So I feel better about going into that call. It's exciting. And not that I'm not excited getting into the calls where I'm doing more talking, but I just know I got to be more on cognitively. However, there are some days where it's back to back to back to back. And I'm sure a lot of people are very, very aware, if you're working from home and you're doing a lot of calls on Zoom or Team, and somebody shows up late for a call, and the first thing they say is, sorry, my last call just finished. And that seems to be an ongoing trend that happens consistently. So how does somebody conserve or really manage their energy when they're working in an environment that is so continuous throughout the day?
Yeah, such a good question. If you have any control at all over that diary and the way that things flow, keep 15-minute breaks between your meetings. Sometimes that's hard if someone else is pulling you into meetings. There's always the question to be asked, am I really required in this meeting? Does it truly need me? And we push a lot of cultures and organizations to ask those questions, be honest with who needs to be there. And also building an environment where you don't run hour to hour, you run to the 50-minute mark. And then there's an agreed cultural norm that we always finish 10 minutes before. Because I love the example, if you had an hour to get ready in the morning, Jane, how long would it take you to get ready? like to
My
get up,
gosh.
have your breakfast, get out the door.
Maybe half hour.
Half hour, you've got a bit of space. You're a guy, but most people would say, well, like I'll use the hour. I can probably find something. I'll use the hour. But if I said you've got 10 minutes to get up and out the door, could you get up and out the door in 10 minutes?
No, no, not at all.
Yes, you would try, but you probably couldn't. But we are aware of um, using a whole hour because we're given a whole hour in a meeting. But if we said we've got 50 minutes, we would work to that 50 minutes. So I encourage people to um, create environments where, and even if you're in a big group meeting, but when you get onto that call, just say out loud, I'm so sorry, I have to leave at 10 minutes to when we finish. And so you set an expectation early on that you'll be tapping out 10 minutes before to give you the space. It's not always possible, but it is a lot of the time. There's also just a little trick. If you're in person and you need to finish the meeting 10 to, and you've got a folder or a notebook, or just make it physically clear that you're wrapping up. Close the notebook, put the pen away, like put your hands on the table. Like you're wrapping up. You're ready to wrap this meeting now. But setting expectations at the beginning is really important. So wherever you can, and let's say you're in a meeting and it absolutely will go right to the hour, and then you've got to get on another one. Start paying attention to your body in that last 10 minutes. So don't get into this panicked state where we're quietly going, I've got to go, I've got to go, I've got another meeting. Settle your nervous system. Stay as calm as you can. Take long exhales. Drink a little bit of water. Just be really mindful. Okay, this meeting is going to go to the full hour, but I'm going to finish it in a really great state so that I can go into my next session with a mentally calm and open brain so that it's going to be available and present for the next thing.
A lot of what you're saying, Alex, sounds like boundaries. It's creating boundaries for yourself. How long does it take for somebody, or let's say somebody's neural wiring, to be naturally like habitual with creating boundaries without the guilt? Because I feel like that's the thing that stops people from creating boundaries, is the fear of disappointing others or the fear of missing out on something.
Yeah. So many elements to your question, and it's so relevant. Guilt is just such a useless feeling. We tend to, guilt just pours in, and all it's doing is stopping us from asking for what we really want or need. So be conscious if you're feeling guilty. Okay, what am I not asking for that I need if I'm feeling guilt? How long does it take to shift neural wiring? It's quite a hard question. I mean, there's this 21-day mark that people say when you build a habit. And if you read Atomic Habits, there's James Clear's got amazing ideas about how to build habits and neurologically what can work. But I think of neural wiring, and my favorite analogy is thinking about a grassy field, and your neural wiring connects one part of your brain to another part of your brain. And when you want to change it, it's as if there's only been one path mode through this field. And you've only walked that path ever. And so the grass everywhere else is really, really high. And now you say, okay, I am going to set a new way of thinking. I'm going to start thinking about finishing at 10:2, that is just a norm for me. That's what I do. And so you start to mow a different connection in your brain. This is true of any change you want to make in your brain. And it's tough at first. It takes a while to get the mower to go through the grass. It's so long. And the other path is so easy and clear. You could just walk straight down it. But over time, if you keep mowing that one, that will get clearer and clearer and clearer and easier. And suddenly your brain will just go to that. And while that's happening, the grass is growing up over the path that you're not walking anymore. So it becomes less likely for you to take that path. So I think about this with things like changing the way that we want to eat, thinking about food and nutrition as things that are going to nourish us rather than I'm just hungry, I need to fill something. And it takes a little bit of time, but once the connection is there, that's your new wiring. And that's the way that your brain will go. So we have this amazing, beautiful thing called neuroplasticity. Our brains are able to be malleable and to change the way that we think all the time. Anything that you would like to change your mindset around, you can do. You just have to commit to it, and you have to create a habit out of it. there's all sorts of little tips and tricks to do that. But um, at a minimum, commit to 3 weeks of, okay, every time this happens, this is how I'm going to behave and this is how I'm going to respond. And you'll see some significant change by 3 weeks. And then it just gets easier from there.
So if somebody did one small thing to create a habit, somebody listening to you now saying, okay, I want to go there and start changing my neural pathways. I want to do one small thing to allow my optimal focus time to be truly utilized, as well as ensuring that my energy is flowing in areas that is accommodating for me to have energy later on in the day. So thinking about all that, somebody's like probably thinking, okay, there's a lot of things there, but what would be one small
Yeah.
thing that would encompass or impact all those other areas noticeably over a week or 2 weeks, etc.? What's one small thing they could do?
Yeah. The easiest, actually, it's probably not easy, but the most obvious is reduce CPA, continuous partial attention, wherever you can. Reduce the distraction. Take your phone, move it away from your desk when you're working, take it out of meetings. There's some incredible studies around just having your phone on your desk, even if it's switched off or upside down, um, drastically, and I'm talking 20-30% reduces your productivity because your brain subconsciously is checking your phone. You may not even pick it up, but your brain is continuously going, wonder if there's a notification there. There might be some information on there. I should check an email or something else. And it has to be out of your view and out of your reach. So now when clients who know me well, when I walk in a room, they'll put their phones out of the room or in a bag, not in their pockets, because they know, and you see it all the time. You'll say phones away, people will put them away, but if it's in their pocket, you can watch people's hands just drift around to just see if it's vibrating. And notifications on watches. I mean, I beg people to get rid of their watches that provide them with information. Why do we need to be that contactable that it literally interrupts our pulse? So one thing, reduce continuous partial attention wherever you can. Take away notifications, focus on the one thing that you're doing. When you need a break, take the break. Don't allow these 50 tabs to just keep running through your brain. You're draining energy rapidly and quietly.
Thinking about how much easier your job would be if people weren't attached to their phones. Like how
Oof, yeah.
like how easy the message would resonate and results would happen, because I actually heard something recently, and it's something that I think I was maybe subconsciously aware of, but when it was consciously said, in I can't remember where I heard it, but they said it was just alarming when it was consciously said, but it was the only place a person doesn't bring their phone is when they're showering. That's it. The only place. Every other thing you do from room to room in your own home, you have your phone with you. It has become a part of who we are, an extension, and it holds so much information and so much opportunity and access that it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can imagine the impact that it has in terms of, like you said, distracting us all the time because you're thinking about the next, buzz on your phone. You're thinking about and what the funny thing is, side note, wasn't the vibrator designed to ensure that it was like immute, like you couldn't hear it, you couldn't see it. It was just like this silent alarm. Now it's like you could hear phones buzzing. You could be in a
Yeah. Uh-huh.
presentation and it's like the ringer is off, but you could hear a phone buzzing. It's really incredible. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a little psychological trick there that the phone companies did.
100%.
It's not silent. It's not. I could hear it. But what's interesting is the anticipatory nature that we have with our phones. Like you said, we wake up in the morning.
Yes.
What indications do we have? What emails do we have? What texts do we have? What happens on social media? Who's liked my post? Who's commented? Like it is
Yeah.
so overwhelming. And now that kids, this Generation Alpha, so I have a 11-year-old daughter, she's Generation Alpha.
Oh, yeah.
All she knows is iPads. That's all she knows. We're watching television. I think one time, a long time ago, we were watching television. A couple commercials came on. She's like, "What is this? Right? Can't you skip it?" I remember the first time she like saw one of our big screen TVs, in the living room. She tried to touch it, thinking that it was going to do
Right.
something. And it's like, that's the way they're operating now. So everything is
Yeah.
quick, it's expedient, and that's just the nature. So I guess this is a large question, but where do you see
Mm,
this going in terms of people's ability to concentrate and people's ability
mm.
to access flow states and energy states when they need them in a way where they're not being depleted all the time? Like with all of this technology and all of this access, like where are people's neurology going now?
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, Dwayne, we could talk for hours. I have an 11-year-old daughter also, as well as a 14-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. So I'm watching this real time with you. And I could talk about generations and their experiences now. And actually, in the workplace, we're doing a lot of work around generational differences and the reduction of resilience and reduction of patience, and all these things that are coming in because what you're seeing. Um, so where do we see this going? For sure, without question, our attention spans are dwindling, dropping drastically. Actually, I'm always nervous to share this, but I've just started writing a book. My business partner and I are writing a book together about the work that we do, which I'm really excited. That'll be more technical, but I'm writing a book more specifically around the tipping point in this world of the speed and how far we're moving away from being human to being in competition. And it's positioned around what I call a rebellion, that's required, calling it the stillness rebellion, I think, because in order for us to really come back to being as effective, as productive, I'm careful with that word because it's not the most important thing to be super productive, but present, energized, healthy, the things that we want to be as humans, it's going to feel like we're going to have to rebel against the state of society. We're going to have to say, we're not going to run our organization that way anymore. It's directed to leaders because I think organizations are our biggest opportunity and our biggest lever to shift the dial. But it is going to require us to rebel and say, actually, just like at schools here now, you can't take your phone into the workplace. And people are going to say, well, what if my children need to contact me? And what if, well, we're going to have to find other systems that work or some way where phones are just far less attached to our being. Because in order for us to be energized, effective, and not reduce this cognitive drain that we have and reduce this cognitive drain that we're feeling, we are going to have to find more presence, more stillness, more ability to let our brains do what they need to do comfortably. So, where do I see it going? I think we've swung really hard one way, which as soon as we do, and I think we have hit that tipping point, especially AI is just the norm now, or very much becoming it. The speed, we've hit the downhill and everything's just flooding. So we will swing back the other way. There are already little rebellions of cafes that are and restaurants that are phone free, technology free, Wi-Fi free. People are asking for the opposite again, and we will come back and we will find some middle ground. But it will take some strong, really brave leadership, individual leadership, being able to stand out from the crowd a little bit and say, well, I'm going to put my phone away before dinner, before we sit down to dinner. I really encourage families, especially professionals, when they come home, that they have an area where everybody's phones go, and they go there from 3 or 4 o'clock for the kids, and 5, 6, 7 o'clock for the adults when they walk in the door, and they stay there until. I mean, adults can make their own decisions, but ideally for the night, but maybe adults need to check in on other family members and things later on. But you have a solid amount of time where everyone is not walking around the house with their phones in their hands. So, yeah, I think we can look at this as a scary time, or we can look at this as a wonderful time of opportunity to take some ownership and take some self-responsibility and not just go with the flow of society, which I think is the most dangerous mob mentality, to just go with what everyone's doing and not ask ourselves some questions about what is natural, what is healthy, what is the most important thing for us.
I really resonate with what you said, because in a lot of what you said, it feels as though we have the responsibility of taking a stance at some point against all this technology and the access to it, and learning about the big tech companies that are pushing this because it's a revenue generator to be on your phones all the time. I just picked up TikTok a while ago, just in the last year. Never really had it, but I got on it for the sake of this podcast. And I remember getting this first alert from it that said, check out your homepage. And I was like, okay. So I actually went, I clicked on it, Alex, and it just showed me my homepage. Okay. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was like, was there going to be a surprise? Like, what was happening? But it's just like they're sending you these notifications just to access your phone. And
Mm,
every time you access the app, they're getting paid because it's viewership,
mm,
and that's what they market to the advertisers, etc. Right? So it's incredible because the very thing that is causing us distraction is the thing that is generating billions of revenue because of that. So there's no
yeah.
interest on their side, at least, to limit it or to help us,
No.
stop it. I know they have like your screen time thing that comes up on your Apple phone every week. It tells you how much your average screen time is, but it's like anything else. You just kind of look at it, it becomes background noise, right? So it's just very interesting. I feel like we're in a very competitive place, where
Mm.
the only chance we really do have is, like you said, it's this mass rebellion that's just saying enough is enough. We want the human centric nature to be more prominent now than
Yeah.
than it has been in a long time. So I definitely agree and resonate with that.
Yeah. And I think I'm definitely not anti-technology. I think it can be phenomenally powerful if we use it well.
Mm,
And there is so much to be said for utilizing our humanness to activate AI in a really clever way. So I certainly think it's a partnership with technology, but we have to own the human stuff that we need to make it work for us, not try to be in this running race with technology that is going to be one we will lose. I think I love so a couple of things that Steve Jobs said, that the iPhone will be the greatest tool that we will ever use. And he wasn't wrong about that. It was a great tool. But actually, we have moved well away from it being a tool for us. And now we are the tool by which organizations access us. So, as you say, I mean, the screen time thing is actually hilariously ironic because it's still another reason for you to check your screen is to see how much time you've been on your screen. And there's more data points there. Like, well, people are checking their screen time 5 times
yep,
a day.
yep,
So
yep.
you're right. Every time we pick up that phone, not even pick it up, carry it around, have it on us, move around with it, it is paying people in data, paying organizations in data. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, Come back to that self leadership and come back to what do you want your life to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What do you want your energy to be like? And then choose how you're going to approach it because it is very, very doable and very possible to live in the world we live in, even if you're in a corporate space, and manage your energy in a way that is more supportive for you without burning yourself out.
I like that. This is the part of the conversation, Alex, where I ask my guests to read their letter to their former self.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I loved that question. I thought, my goodness, what am I going to write? And I think I said to you, Dwayne, when we were talking about this, because I was digging around about what had been the pivotal change points in my life. And I have always thought there's not been a significant big moment where I thought everything's different now before this event and after this event. But rather, it's been lots and lots and lots of different little events that have created change for me. And so that's where my letter is coming from. So would you like me to go ahead and read it?
The floor is yours.
Okay. Dear Alex, so many times your perspective has been shifted by the events in your life. The way you view the world altered again to let in more space, more acceptance, and more flow. If I could tell you anything, it would be more gentle on yourself because what matters truly is to remember that you are completely connected to this world around you, the people around you. And remembering that helps you know, firstly, that you're not alone. And secondly, that the amount we love others is only limited by the amount we love ourselves. Your perspective will shift so many times in ways that you must stay open and judgment free, or you'll get comfortable in your view only to realize there is a greater perspective possible. It also reminds you that knowing what's important is really all there is. We have no idea how long we have in this world, so choose your priorities carefully. At the end of it all, you'll have very little use for striving and material things, but how you spend your time and, more importantly, your energy will matter. Surround yourself with people who fill you with joy and who you can be your full self with. Spend your energy on things that give back, that light you up, and on the people you love. Live fully by appreciating every aspect you can. Slow down, take it all in. Every sunset, every raindrop, every laugh, every tear you wipe away from a child's cheek or a hug that you're offered. There's no rush. The slower you go, the more you'll feel and the more you'll appreciate in this very precious human experience. We're all leaders, leaders of ourselves, of our communities, of our families. The best leaders are followed because they're authentic, open, curious, and kind, not because they're loud, powerful, or materially successful. Be that leader always. Enjoy the ride, even the hard parts.
It's incredible. I have to thank you for taking that time and putting those thoughts down. I know your younger self is smiling in an alternate universe. But Alex, I have to say, when it comes to self-leadership, I think the work that you're doing is phenomenal. It's very internal focused, it's people-centric. And what I took from this conversation today was a lot, but specifically is the the balance of your time versus your energy. And you don't have to look at those two things as being synonymous. Time is perpetual, it's going to keep going, but your energy you have control over. And it's really identifying where you're spilling your energy, whether advertently or inadvertently throughout the day. What are you looking at throughout your day in terms of preparing where your energy is going to flow? And it made me realize that you don't have to be reactive, that you don't have to react to the day as it happens. You could plan for the day in advance and prepare where your energy is going to go. Like, it's never going to be perfect all the time, but how much energy can you conserve for the things that matter in your life if you just are more cognitive about it? And that's something I'm going to take away and start applying right away. Was there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
Um, no, I mean, there's always more, isn't there? But it's been a really fantastic conversation, and truly, Dwayne, thank you for asking great questions and for giving me the opportunity to be somewhat self-reflective. I just think we don't do that enough to look inward and ask ourselves what's changed in our lives, because there's so much value in seeing how far you've come. It's always further than you think. So thank you for that, and thank you for articulating so beautifully the concepts that I'm sharing, and giving me the floor to share it. I love this energy around self-leadership. I think it is going to be a really powerful, and I think it really is our current state of leadership is self-leadership, but in service of the collective as opposed to just in service of the self. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Thanks for being with me today, Alex.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.